Good morning. I'm Vernita Cox, the daughter of Charles and Lucinda Cox. My parents came to the United States from the Bahama Islands around 1920 or 1921. They lived in Miami, where they worked for maybe a couple years, and hearing about the farming in the Glades area, they decided they would try to come out to the Glades area to work and to make a living. They lived on Creamer Island for the first part of the years that they came here. Then they moved on to South Bay. At that time, it was a family of 5. The mother, the father, 2 boys, and 1 daughter. Sometime around September in 1928, I believe I was told it was on a Sunday, that they began to see water that was rising. Not knowing where the water was coming from, my father remembered, he said, an old Indian saying to them sometimes in the months before that something terrible was going to happen in the Glades area. Nothing precisely, because at that time there wasn't, we didn't have the things that we have now for monitoring hurricanes. The water continued to come up out of nowhere. The weather was changing, and an aunt of my father said that she felt that maybe she should try to get back to Miami. And at this point, she took her sons and herself and tried to make it back to the highway so she could get a trip back into Miami. The aunt and the boys were never heard of, and it was felt that these boys and the mother were drowned in that 28th storm. My father said he had nowhere to go, but there was a tree near the house. And he said to my mother, he said, I think our best bet would be to climb the tree and get as high as we can. They went out to the tree. My mother went up first. My father passed the little girl up to my mother. The older boy, being 6 years old, could climb for himself. The other little boy, my father decided that he would take this little fella in the tree with him. He started up the tree, but he slipped, and the young fellow fell. After searching in the water for a while, he finally found him. But it appeared that he was breathless. No life, my father assumed. He decided that he would just leave him there because he felt that he was dead. And a thought came to him, said, my mother just might say, well, let me hold him for a while, and I'll let you hold the daughter because he is heavier than she is. He said to himself, I would not have a child to pass, so I'd better hold on to him in the event that she wanted to see what was going on with the other children. He held on to him, he said, maybe for an hour or so, and then he felt movement. And he knew that the baby had not drowned. He felt thankful, and at this particular time, he said he felt then that he knew by some means or somehow that they would be saved. My mother, I don't know whether it was out of fright or whether maybe she really heard. She said, but at that time, said she heard choirs, like choirs of angels, and they were singing all of the old spiritual songs that she had heard after coming to the United States. And said she felt then that if anything had happened to them, that they were prepared to leave. The storm raged on and the water became higher and higher. And she said, like out of nowhere, so things became calm. And she said, her father and she, they prayed and they asked God to spare them, to let them live and to let the children live. After everything became calm, they could see out into the distance. It was the next day. They saw a young man drifting by on what would you call a log. but he was really using it as a rafter, not knowing that this was my mother's nephew, which she had brought to the States with her, and he had been saved. Her nephew, my mother's nephew, had been saved. Not knowing this, they still prayed and hoped that somewhere that he had found shelter. Somehow the Red Cross got into my parents. They picked my mother and the children up. They were taken back to Miami. My father stayed on as a volunteer to help with the bodies that were killed during that time. There were many, many people that were drowned in the 1928 storm. My mother said to my father's family after getting into Miami that he was out in the glades trying to help with the other people who were not as fortunate as they were. They did not believe it. They believed that somewhere along the line that she was covering up and trying to be strong so they would not feel the impact of the hurricane. So they made a trip out to the glades themselves to find out exactly what had happened during that time. After they had gotten here, they found out that he was saved. Then they got in with him to help him so he could get back to Miami as quickly as possible. Through all of this and all of the miseries that they had gone through, 9 days after the storm, my mother gave birth to another son. No one cannot imagine how they came through this ordeal. They went back to Miami. They stayed in Miami until around 1938. Then they came back to the Glades area, hoping this time that things would be a little different. And I think things were a lot different when they came back the second time, because they lived in the Glades area until they passed. My mother passed in 77 and my father passed in 86. And that was the way the hurricane did go.
You want me to start off with who I am?
That'd be wonderful. Just sort of, he'll give you a signal.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the way Mrs. Cox did, how your family came here.
Yes, okay.
Farm.
Okay.
Anytime.
Okay, well, I'm Vernon Boots, and I'm one of the survivors that went through the 28 hurricane. Our family was here in 1916, but we didn't stay. We went back to Arizona. And then after several years, well, to be exact, 1925, we decided to come back. So we came back in 1925, and my brother was already living at South Bay. He and his 2 children and wife. And there was 6 in our family, 4 boys and our parents, and we came down here to Sebring Farm, which is not too far east from where we stand right now. And we took up residence there and was in the process of maybe buying the Sebring Farm land, but we were farming part of it. And we lived right on the lake, was able to look out on beautiful Lake Okeechobee, which we have hid behind the dike now. But the fishing opportunities were great on the lake, and we spent a lot of time fishing and hunting. And in fact, I could go about 200 yards from the house. And any of you that know about alligators, you can take and put a stick under your throat and make a noise, and the mama gator will send up a little gator. Now, I know you won't believe me, but actually, you know when a little gator was coming up, because the mama would, in some system, tell the gator, and we'd see the water shift. Well, the little gator couldn't make the water move, and here would come up a little gator, and we would grab him behind the jaws by the neck and take him out. And I guess it felt kind of bad about that, because we stole about 4 or 5 of this mama alligators, little gators, and took them home, and I remember Mama getting after us, so we took them back and put them back in the hole, and she was just thankful that the gator hadn't gotten us. But that was one of the things that happened in the living there, and how we come to get caught at Sebring Farm. The weather reports then, we didn't have communication as we have now, of course, but the news was that we were going to have a hurricane. My brother came to Sebring Farm and picked up the family, and we went back to South Bay. And after staying there a while, they said, well, no, I believe that was Sunday morning early. They said there wouldn't be one, or either Saturday evening that we came back to Sebring Farm. And so us boys, we were having a big time. We would make an airplane prop and out of shingles and put them on a nail with a stick. And actually the wind got to blowing so hard that the prop would turn so fast it would burn a hole right through it. You know how an Indian starts a fire? Well, we had the same process almost. The prop would just go right back on the stick from wearing a hole in it. And of course we were enjoying it, you know, but not having sense enough to know something bad was about to take place. And so it was just a little bit before dark that the water began to get up right to the top of the dike, which was strictly a muck dike, and it's probably 4 or 5 feet high. And so that meant that the water elevation was a good bit higher than the houses. The houses at Sebring Farm were, I think, about 4 in number, and they were good wood frame houses on piling about 3 feet high. And then there were other sheds there. But the folks that lived in this cluster of houses decided to get everyone and go in a house that Mr. Thirsk, he used to be a game warden, lived in, he and his wife. And so we all went in the attic of this building, and it was just getting dark. And I was one of the last ones to go in, and the building was getting kind of shaky, and in the process I remember getting my hand cut. So that's the only thing that I can tell physically about the hurricane was I lost a little bit of flesh out of my hand. But we got all in the attic, and there were 21 white folks that went in there, and I know, but I think we need to differentiate, say something about this. There were about 42 blacks that were in the building. And for a time, everything was pretty placid because the building wasn't moving enough to really get anybody excited. But after a bit, the black folks are praying and singing and praying, and there's a combination the same as this Miss Potter said. The white folks were, I don't know why, very quiet and never said a word. And I can remember my mother saying, "Stay together." I guess that's one of the natural things that would happen, you know, in a family. And of course we were right together, but the house backed up and went into the shoulder of Road 27 there. And of course it may not be as high as it looks now, the old 27 now, not new 27, but it was high enough that the buildings, when they moved back and they had an opportunity to get up a good bit of velocity and they hit 27, why, it racked them real bad, and they bounced about a couple of times off of that and went down. The roof, as I remember, just came down over all of us except for Thompson, or Charlie Thomas. Charlie Thomas, he got an axe and was cutting a hole in the roof, and he had the hole just about cut time the house went down, and he went out through the hole. And I don't know if anyone else got through the hole. In that family, he and his son, Mutt Thomas, which all you know, survived. But the rest of the folks that got out just got out because the house broke up, and and all, and I remember as it went under, well, I could see flashlights. Everybody had a flashlight while I turned it on, so the flashlights were shining on the water, you know, and I have to admit, now I could swim, and but I'll have to admit I don't remember swimming one stroke in there. And I had a younger brother who could not swim, and I had one younger that could swim. Well, the one that could swim, which was Virgil, he drowned, and Willie, or Little Bill, we call him, he didn't get drowned. And then our older brother, he survived, and so there was 3 of us boys in the one family that survived. And of course, like all of them that were on something that buoyant, why they moved out into the Everglades just about. And we were carried southeast of where we stand right now, probably 3.5 or 4 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles or so, maybe further. But when we after we moved out about this distance, telling you 3 or 4 miles, why, and it was just beginning to come day. The wind was still blowing fairly good, but it wasn't, the hurricane was over basically. And I thought, of course, that I was the only one there in the neighborhood, and then I heard somebody, and that was one of my brothers. And a little bit, well, then when we started talking, well, I hear there was another one. So we were all 3 on one section of the ceiling. Now, the piece I was on, and I'm not complaining about this, just glad to be here, but the smooth side was up, and I really worked myself to death going around and around because I had to keep my head into the wind and waves, or I'd have just got knocked off. But my 2 brothers, why, they just... Oh.
Where you said my 2 brothers.
Okay. My 2 brothers were a little bit more fortunate than I. One of them had a nail that went through part of his hand and bothered him some, but they got to lay down between the ceiling joists, which back then they didn't use 2x4s, just 2x6 or 8, so they were pretty deep, and they really didn't have much trouble hanging on, but I got my exercise that night. But after daybreak, so we could see where we were, we noticed, you know, in the willows and so forth, because we were back in the undeveloped land. The willows is full of snakes and turtles and alligators and anything, birds and all type of life that, you know, where the animals had died, or in the bushes and so forth. But well, we got out and started walking towards Lake Harbor, right where we stand now, this town. And when we had gone probably a quarter of a mile or so, we heard somebody holler. And so we looked back, and here came little Mutt Thomas. He was a couple of years younger than I was, I believe, or so, and he was waiting and waving his hand, trying to get our attention. And so we stopped and waited on him, and then the 4 of us walked in, and when we arrived right here at the bridge, which I can see from here, there was a drag line that was driving the first piling for that bridge, but the bridge was not completed, and the drag line has stayed on its platform, and so we had a little boat. We didn't have it, but there was a little boat there that I assume somebody had been using, and we got in the boat and went across the canal, and we went to a hotel which stood over in the corner of the lot over here to my right. And there were several other people that were there, not a whole lot, but people that had survived the hurricane. That was where all of them from this immediate area went. And of course the word began to be common that so many people had gotten drowned. I think out of the people that were in the Sebring house with us, there were 7 white and really only one black gentleman that he told me that he was in the house too. And now from there, we'll stop. Where from there do you want me to go? You want me to back up on something other than that story? I'll tell that after a little bit.
Why don't you tell us about, can you tell us about the house behind you?
Oh, sure.
Tell us it was the gate, about it being the gatekeeper's house.
Okay. Okay. This house that you see behind me here was a typical house at all the locks. We had locks here at Lake Harbor, locks at South Bay, and locks at Belle Glade, locks at Canal Point. Basically, I think that covers all of them, but all of them had this conventional style house at it. And then also, at every area where there was a lock tender's house, there's also a bridge tender's house. And I'm pretty sure they were separated. This used to be one of these old bridges that you got out there on a crank and opened it up. And so the bridge here and all the other areas that I mentioned, they had the same situation, except, well, even in Belle Glade, and that is Chosen, I should say, Chosen lock there. But this house here was typical, and I can remember, I mean, I've been up the steps on it because I remember playing, and I have helped crank the locks open, and I was looking at the locks, and the locks here are in excellent shape, and I hope that we can continue getting money or enough support that they can keep it up. And this house, as you see, needs help, so it would be good if everyone, if we got organized in that aspect and repaired our fence and painted and cleaned up the house. But this house, probably back then, and my memory may not be exact, but I think that there was about 4 steps you had to go up to get into it. And now, why, you can see, because the settling of the earth here should have been, or where, well, anywhere, except for the amount that is replaced by fill, and there has been some fill put in here. But without fill, we would be about 3 feet lower than we are, probably 2.5, 3 feet lower. And in the time of the 28 hurricane and now, we've lost about 5 feet of soil in the entire Glades area, practically, except where it was kept underwater. We need a little bit of humor with a story like this, and at the time when my brothers, they were old enough, my brother, one brother, and my half-brother came back to Belle Glade, well, South Bay, Belle Glade and South Bay. Of course, they worked in the South Bay area. But one of the things that happened which had humor in it, you know, they had many coffins, and they were just pine wood coffins, and they were stacked out. And because of problems of disease, why the National Guard had instructions to kill all animals that they saw. And here this little dog came by, and so this National Guardsman, he saw it and he said, "Man, I can't shoot the little dog." Well, what? Another one of the men there said, "Well, you got a bat, use the bat." And he said, "Well, you can use the bat." But anyway, they didn't do away with the little dog, and he decided he would pick up the lid on one of those coffins and put the little dog in the coffin. So he put him in the coffin and figured he'd be all right till they could get him out of sight. And someone come along, there was a black gentleman, I believe. I haven't told this story lately, so I can't keep it all straight probably, but black gentleman came by and he heard this noise, and he goes over and lifts the lid a little bit, you know, and here's this little dog in there, you know, and I can't remember the final outcome of that, but anyway, it gave everyone a big laugh, the fact that they did have a little bit of humor along that line. Okay, we'll stop again now.
Was the gate tender's house moved off
Oh,
and put back?
yes, ma'am. We'll go back to the gate tender's house here. When we came in from back out where we floated, this house, I'm pretty sure, had just gone across, partway across the highway, which is straight southeast from here. And there were several buildings that were, I remember, just partly resting on the road. Some of them that were on enough piling, and the water got up high enough before they moved. They went in and landed on top of the road, and some of them stayed intact, and I think this building did that too. But like I said, it's the typical type that at all the areas where we have locks, and also the house tender, or the bridge tender's house. If you all think of something else you'd like to ask.
That was wonderful. Wonderful. I told us that's where she came when she lived like 4 years old. She and her mother, father was already here to see me. She said that the grounds were so nice that she got into. That's where she lived in Los Playa. She said the groundskeeper would take her and take her around with him and tell her where to Los Playa. And that's what she started up. She said it was beautiful.
It was.
There was a hotel on this block. There was a hotel out on the lake too. Was that on Little Island?
Yeah, I could, some of the stories close down the road, we don't go down like that. My brothers.
And Landingham, because you'll know which one is which, right? Say, Mrs. Van Landingham,
What was the one we had?
what was the warning you had before?
Okay.
Right. Actually, you can kind of look over. Look to your left, it says.
Where they were sitting?
Go ahead.
Mrs. Van Landingham?
All the way from the beginning. You decide.
I have a truck.
Hold up. Anytime.
Mrs. Van Landingham, what was the warning you had before the storm?
All right, you started to back up.
Don't do what I do with the eyes. Say each word so I can hear each word. Truck. Try to time this truck. We can be ready to speak.
Mrs. Van Landingham, what was the warning you had before the storm?
That's okay. All right, now next. The last one.
What was it like on the board? The last
Did anyone come onto the boat after the storm started? Practice it out loud.
Did anyone come onto the boat after the storm
After
started?
the storm. Can you think of a better way to say it?
No.
Well, it's not a wonderful question.
Did anybody get on the boat?
Did anyone get on the boat after the storm started?
Did anyone get on the boat after the storm started?
More
You need a car.
smoothly.
Did anybody get on the boat?
Did anyone get
On the boat after the storm started.
You got it.
And who's that one directed to, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
They still remember.
All right, go ahead.
Did anyone get on the boat after the storm started?
That's fine.
Do it one more time. She wiggled.
No?
Yep.
Did anyone get on the boat after the storm started?
Good.
On the barge. What was it like on the barge?
Where's Mike?
What was it like on the barge?
Anytime.
What was it like on the barge? Or did I move too much?
Do it again and say what was it like on the barge? Accent like this time.
What was it like on the barge?
Okay, try it one more time, because I'm going to have to put that a little bit. Yeah. Let's get this.
What'd you say, sir?
Just get it real quiet and then just do that one more time.
What was it like on the barge?
Okay. Question number 3. You want to get her back in there?
No. Mrs. Van Horn, what was your husband doing during the storm? Or where, Mrs. Van Horn, where was your husband during the storm?
Where was your husband and your neighbor during the storm? Hold up now. That way. Mrs. Van Horn, where was your husband and your neighbor during the storm? Where were your husband?
Where was your husband? Say it to me. Mrs. Van Horn, where was your husband during the storm?
Oh, it rhymes. Mrs. Van Horn, where was your husband during the storm? Like that? All right.
Go ahead. I hope you got that.
Mrs. Van Horn, where was your husband during the storm? I like that. I like that.
Okay. It's running right now. Now the idea is going to be after they finish talking. As you guys finish, who's going to be the last person to talk? Okay. As he finishes, just stand there for a second after you finish, like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then just kind of separate. And I'll zoom in tight on that the night that
Heather,
2,000
it's
died.
Heather in this part. We're going to do that last part out front.
Oh,
So when Heather finishes and said it's our attempt to bond the past and the future, then you slowly turn it
I'm
back.
just coming back up.
Yeah, a step back.
That's what we gotta meet up and say.
Yeah, I need to get you guys closer together.
There's a part in there where it does that.
Like that?
Let her rip.
Hi, I'm Heather Unwin.
All right, start right from the top. I'm sorry. Pardon me.
It's okay, sir.
Stay close. Shall I interrupt you one more time, or are you used to it?
That's okay, sir.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Heather Unwin.
And I'm Adam Salvatore. For the past 2 years, the West Area gifted classes have studied the land south and east of Lake Okeechobee. This film is a culmination of that study.
Last year, we started by talking about our heritage and expressing our feelings in poetry. We've combined our writings into a book called Beginnings.
We've gone through old newspaper articles about the 1928 hurricane. We've read Lawrence Will's books and visited the museum here in Belglade that was dedicated to him.
One of the best parts of this project has been the people we've interviewed. We learned about this area's early years, especially around the time of the 1928 hurricane. Art Horn, meteorologist with Channel 5, and Richard Turner, director of hurricane preparedness with the Red Cross, also came to speak with us.
We've seen history come alive. It's so important to preserve our heritage. We lose a piece of it with the death of each of our ancestors. This is one of the last pioneering areas in the United States,
My grandfather.
and my great-grandfather were a part of it.
This film is a tribute to all those who lost their lives in the 1928 hurricane and those who stayed to rebuild. This is our attempt to bond the past and the future.
Yeah, the end wasn't real smooth on my part, but
We need to try it
Can
again.
you do it again? Punch your words. Punch your words, Heather.
And Heather,
Punch
keep
them.
looking at the camera. Don't look at him
You
until
don't want
you're
her to look
finished.
at the
I'm
camera.
Heather Unwin. And then look at him.
But not so automatically. It's like when you get through, you're looking at the camera and you go,
When you start hearing him talk, then you turn. When you start hearing him talk,
Thank you.
Heather, when you start hearing him talk, that's when you turn to listen to him. It's not, I'm Heather Unwin and
take it away.
And
It was good
try
though.
putting your hand, yeah,
Punch
it's real
your
good.
word.
Put your hand down. You kind of clutching at
Are
your
you
hand.
getting her hand?
I can cut it up higher. I've got it
Yeah.
just below her, right about here.
Try from
Do you
here.
lose too much of the diorama?
I can get rid of the diorama if you
No,
want.
I kind of like the diorama.
Oh, it's just about, I can
kinda like
I can
this
just
thing
see
right
the
here.
top of it, but it's...
I kind of like it turned like
All right,
that.
a little bit closer together. A little bit closer together again.
Want him to put his elbow on?
Try that. Let's see what that looks like.
Uh-huh.
Good, I like that.
Okay.
Don't really lean on it, just kind of use it.
Lean on.
Yo, I was like,
Have a
And
seat.
smile a little bit more.
It's a happy hurricane.
Okay,
We
all
killed
right.
2,000 people.
Quiet on the set. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Heather Unwin.
And I'm Adam Salvatore. For the past 2 years, the West Area gifted classes have studied the land south and east of Lake Okeechobee. This film is a culmination of that study.
Last year, we started by talking about our heritage and expressing our feelings in poetry. We combined our writings into a book called Beginnings.
We've gone through old newspaper articles about the 1928 hurricane. We've read Lawrence Will's books and visited the museum here in Belgrade that was dedicated to him.
One of the best parts of this project has been the people we've interviewed. We learned about this area's early years, especially around the time of the 1928 hurricane. Art Horn, meteorologist with Channel 5, and Richard Turner, director of hurricane preparedness with the Red Cross, also came to speak with us.
We've seen history come alive. Ooh, I forgot that. Okay. I'm ready with this.
Go ahead.
We've seen history come alive. It's so important to preserve our heritage. We lose a piece of it with the death of each of our ancestors. This was one of the last pioneering areas in the United States,
My grandfather.
and my great-grandfather were a part of it.
This film is a tribute to all those who lost their lives in the 1928 hurricane and those who stayed to rebuild. It's our attempt to bond the past and the future.
Hurricane statue.
They had indeed got muck in their shoes.
See? The strength. The strength.
Anytime.
It would be easy to forget what all those stout-hearted pioneers experienced, but the hurricane statue here at McDonald Park It would be easy to forget what all those stout-hearted pioneers experienced, but the hurricane statue here in front of the Belgrade Library at McDonald Park stands as a silent reminder of the past, of the devastation, and of the strength of those who survived the storm and stayed to create the Glades as we know it today.
Lawrence Will says it best. After the storm, many a Glades inhabitant had loudly declared that never again would he return to this accursed place. Some returned that spring, most of the remainder subsequently. Their fate in this country is reflected in the growth of the farms and towns in the Glades. They had indeed gotten muck in their shoes.
They had indeed gotten muck in their shoes. Eat those last three words.
In their shoes.
I did a good job, gosh. You know, hot, you know, sweaty.
It's the wall. That's perfect. Why?
Let her rip.
Lawrence Will says it best. After the storm, many a Glades inhabitant had loudly declared that never again would he return to this accursed
Place. Who starts? You or me? Who starts?
Lawrence Will says it best. After the storm, many a Glades inhabitant had loudly declared that never again would he return to this accursed place. Some returned that spring, most of the remainder subsequently. Their faith in this country is reflected in the growth of the towns and farms in the Glades. They had indeed gotten muck in their shoes. Will says it best. After the storm, many a Glades inhabitant had loudly declared that never again would he return to this accursed place. Some returned that spring, most of the remainder subsequently. Their faith in this country is reflected in the growth of the towns and farms in the Glades. They had indeed gotten muck in their shoes. Great.
Okay, take it from the top.
It will be easy to forget what all those stout-hearted pioneers experienced. But the hurricane statue here at the Belgrade Library at McDonald Park stands as a silent reminder of the past, of the devastation, and of the strength of those who survived the storm and stayed to create the Glades as we know it today.
Lawrence Will says it best. After the storm, many a Glades inhabitant had loudly declared
it would be easy to forget what all those stout-hearted pioneers experienced.
that was nice.
Okay.
It would be easy to forget what all those stout-hearted pioneers experienced. But the hurricane statue here in front of the Belgrade Library at McDonald Park stands as a silent reminder of the past, of the devastation, and of the strength of those who survived the storm and stayed to create the Glades as we know it today.
Lawrence Will says it best. After the storm, many a Glades inhabitant had loudly declared that never again would he return to this accursed place. Some returned that spring, most of the remainder subsequently. Their faith in this country is reflected in the growth of the towns and farms in the Glades. They had indeed gotten muck in their shoes. I like that.
Well, when you go down.
Not a truck in sight. No traffic. Do it. Are they doing it?
No, I'm getting a tight shot on the wolf. I'm getting stuff coming right now.
You've been out here over 25
Saying
minutes.
if he got muck in their shoes, then we'll just cut to the statue.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to vanish and then.
And then pull back.
Gladly.
going to have to take it to South Tech in order to do that.
Oh.
We can't superimpose it without a time-based corrector, and I don't have one.
Okay. Is that a...
We can do it.
Okay.
We could just, like, in filming us, we could get up and walk off and then just look at that while the credits run.
No, you just be gone when you pull back on it.
That's a good idea.
You're gone now. You did great. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
That went real well.
I'm going to the college. I'm going. Can't believe Adam.
I think that's what he wants to
Turn it
do.
on and off. Look right at that camera just like eating it up. That's what he's going to do.
We're just going to let that run for a few minutes.
Adam has a feel for it, I think.
A what?
A feel for this. Well, Tommy's wonderful as far as the other things, but Adam, as far as being on camera, seems to have a...
Natural presence.
It doesn't seem to
Rattle.
intimidate him at all, and he can talk right to that little camera. It's amazing to see what people can do to... I'm scared of this, because I'm so ugly.
No. Your features
Tommy
work
can-
wonderfully on camera because they're so small.
Tommy can write. He can see it ahead of time before you do it and write it all out and see what
He
you
helped
ought
us
to
put
do.
the
Yeah.
sequencing stuff
Sequencing
together.
and everything. That's the part that's so hard. That's a nice tree right there.
It's a wonderful tree. Can we use it?
I don't
Hopefully the credits will be over with by now. You want to, without touching anything, just go up and see what it looks like, and if you find it, that's the way it'll just leave that there.
Okay.
It sounds like a cannon going off, but I don't know. Here comes another one. Watch out, Rhea.
Any problem if he takes film?
I already told him it has to be done at standard play. That's the only condition.
Okay. So I think we're just going to have him do it. That will cut down on our time. We can just go over to Fort Myakka now.
They were next door neighbors. And that's how we met Susan, isn't it?
This could really be a wonderful area. And you can see the lake. And if they can build up along the lake now.
But she's strong now.
Good. I'm just gonna let it run out, looking out that way.
I'll pour my neck a lot. Yeah, yeah. No seal. No seal. Forgive me.
No what?
No seal.
We're getting that light out there. The horizon.
I won't know until I look at it out of mine. I just lighten it up.
We'll have plenty of.
You get that pelican, well, that pelican flying. I hope so. For the 15 seconds and I'll let you look in the viewfinder. You gotta put your eye right above it. And I just noticed there's no way on this guy to defeat the auto iris. The auto iris is internal. Yeah. Hey, you want to take a look in it before I shut it off?
Did you do the other direction too?
Yeah, I've done a couple of different pans.
Well, we're fine.
You done?
Yeah.
You don't want to look?
No, I won't know when I'm.
I think we're clear now. As soon as I get out of the sun, it locks up just fine. I've got a lot of detail.
Car coming down. The van.
School bus.
Okay, I'll do one more pan and then I'll do it. I can edit those things out. There won't be any movement at all.
I love it. It just is wonderful.
We just let it run on that for a little bit, and then I'll just shut it off. But I did a nice pan of it too.
Yeah.